So we're at a point where we can start building a fretboard. So that'll be fun. Stick around. Welcome to Bonehead Guitars. Let's go build some junk. So ultimately, it was just hard to choose between those two pieces. They're both really gorgeous, and I mean, they're both cut out of the same piece. But ultimately, I decided I wanted to go with this one. I like, when there's more interesting features and pattern in one end than there is in the other, I tend to want to put it toward the head end, because that's what you're going to be looking at more often. And with the closer frets, really interesting pattern kind of gets lost in that. So, but at the same time, you're also tapering to a thinner area toward the head, so double-edged sword. So in this case, we're losing some interesting stuff, but we've still got some interesting stuff. So I think this is the plan. Now, I've been thinking, I've done it several different ways over all these builds, and it's not necessarily an evolution of process to where we're changing to a different way of doing things. It kind of depends on the circumstance. In this particular case, because I got to thinking, the binding winds up being pretty thin, and I want to put a veneer between the binding and the fretboard, which may make it really thin. So just so we can control that, normally, at least the last several builds, I will get the slots cut, leave it flat, get it mounted, and then route the binding channel and leave a little bit of meat at the bottom. But I want to put a veneer there this time instead of doing that. So I'm actually thinking we'll get it secured, route it to size, peel it back off, use the joiner to take off just exactly how much we want on either side, then mount it so we can control the shelf that's left for binding a little more. So maybe we can leave just a little bit more than my binding router bit would have. In the meantime, just for fun, because our taper is to dimension. That's where we're going to be. I put it face down, centered and up where I expect my nut to be. Clamped it in place, drew my lines. Because of the way my slotting jig is, the slots it cuts are based on a template, but they're offset ever so slightly, so I can't count on the end of the template being the end of the board. So I left just a little bit of room there for the actual nut cut. And then with my 24.562 template, looked at where the 24th fret is and gave us, it's not a 1/4 inch, but it's close to a 1/4 inch extra room beyond the 24th, and then we'll put binding on that, so we could get a basic idea of our profile and the length. We could go ahead and cut this. There's no desperate need to. Step one is cutting those fret slots and making sure that they look right. I've had a little trouble with my jig as of late, and I'm terrified to destroy this beautiful piece of wood with it. But, as long as we're careful, everything should work out. I hope. I'm going to go on like that, flush with this edge. If you've ever seen me do this before, Super glue is just, it's overkill. We don't really need it here. We don't particularly need to ensure its flatness or anything like that. We just need it to stick and, you know, not slip. So, alternating rolls accomplishes that. So, I mean, what we drew here is just a quick guide to see, you know, what it's going to look like, and if I'm okay with how much pattern we lose and that kind of stuff. I didn't really measure super precise to make sure everything was, you know, exact, because we don't need that right now. Now that we have actually stuck these two together, we know exactly where that nut line is going to be, and so, you know, all of that may shift things slightly. Now, the problem I have had recently is that there's a little bit of wiggle in there, which is a bit of a problem. But if I make sure that I keep it flush to this side of the miter, then I can ensure that every fret is going to be placed right. Well, alright, like I said, that may give it an ever so slight offset toward this direction, but it will be everywhere. So it'll be an offset template, ever so slightly, but it should be correct. I just have to be slow and patient. I also have to make sure once I'm in the slot, I never come out of it. Getting back in there is tricky. Or it could be. So, best to just avoid that altogether. There is no wiggle. It is absolutely solid. And we didn't get very deep down on this end. We don't really need to. We just need a slot, and then we'll go back with our other saw and deepen things as much as needed. Anyway, turtles all the way down. Anyway, it's gonna go like this for a while. So my jig failed me. I'm not entirely sure how we slid off and got this fret crooked. It's right at the bass side, and it is definitely wrong at the treble side. Just a tiny bit. I drew a square white line so you can see how the actual cut is off. Just, I mean, tiny bit, but it's off. Noticeably looking at it. The plan is mix up some dust and glue to fill that slot, and redo it. Then we can let this dry overnight, sand it up tomorrow, and as luck would have it, it looks like Cerakote is the one on top. Somewhere I have the perfect tool for this. It's just not here. You might have actually got it just a little too dry. I didn't see that coming. Looks like it squeezed all the way into the slot. I really want to scrape it flush, but you know what? It's probably alright. Wood glue shrinks when it dries, but this is a tiny amount of wood glue, so in a tiny slot. The only reason I'm alright doing this is because, I mean, it is so close that the fret is going to cover this, so I'm not terribly worried about how it looks. Now, real soon we need to be making plans for a new fret slotting jig. Alright. Hopefully it'll be good. We can recut that slot, sand that back, and everything will be good.
Tomorrow.
So, I'm gonna try to get through the mess on top. We get down to just the slot and see how it looks. I think it did a good enough job filling. I guess how this goes it has the chance to prove us wrong. I don't know. We'll see. We're just gonna have to be very careful and go at this nice and slow, and hopefully everything will go as it should. And then I think this poor jig will get retired, and we need to come up with something new. I don't know, that looks a hell of a lot straighter this time. I think maybe we're good. Alright, well, it looks good for now. We're going to go with this and see what happens. If when we go to fret, the fret doesn't stick in the slot, then it'll be too late and we'll be screwed. If that happened to be the case, I think there are ways we could mitigate that. But as we go through the process of prepping the fretboard and getting it ready, if we see any problems, then maybe we'll start with the other blank before we, commit this one to the neck. But I think for the moment we are saved. Now we got a lot of work to do to make it fretboard. Thanks for joining me. If you like what we're doing, if you're digging it, like and subscribe. Catch you next time.